to Farther Down the Rabbit Hole. My name is Paula Gloria, and we have on the line with us today Webster Tarpley from Washington, D.C. So welcome, Webster.
Thank you very much, Paula.
A lot of my viewers are wondering what you're thinking about the Blacksburg massacre.
Well, I have to say from the beginning that I am very skeptical about the official explanation, such as it is, and the kind of stuff that's been coming out of the television. Let me say, first of all, whenever you're dealing with such a question, you have to look at previous cases. And here we're confronted with yet another in what seems to be an endless list of lone assassins, right? The troubled loner, the misfit, the drifter, in this case a person who almost never speaks in public, who's obviously got severe mental problems, is probably mentally ill, probably autistic and psychotic, and so diagnosed from a very early age. And nevertheless, he manages to do all these things. So I think we have to approach this, first of all, with tremendous skepticism. The other thing is we're living here in the United States. We cannot forget the relevant historical record. The U.S. intelligence community has been obsessed, really, for decades with making people do violent deeds independently of what their own will might be. And perhaps it's enough to mention code names like MK Ultra, Bluebird, Artichoke. These were all mind control exercises by the intelligence community. We also know of the pervasive activity of the Tavistock Institute of London along the same lines, where and this has influenced the psychiatric profession to a very great degree. So whenever you see a lone assassin, you must hold open, unfortunately, the possibility that this person is some kind of a Manchurian candidate who has been subjected to some form of Clockwork Orange-style brainwashing, that he's been profiled, that he's been groomed, and ultimately that he's been tampered with. Now, we can talk about Cho, who is the accused assassin, although nothing is proven, and there is, of course, a presumption of innocence. But let's just look at this incident before Cho even comes on the scene, because you will remember that from the time of the shootings at about 7 o'clock Eastern Time on that Monday morning till about 24 hours later, the authorities refused to identify a suspect. And this is a very interesting time, because in that time, I think there are at least 3 people who are considered to be suspects. People who are called persons of interest or second shooters or what have you. First of all, there's a guy called Thornhill. The first shooting incident takes place in a dormitory at Virginia Tech there in Blacksburg, Virginia. It's about 7 a.m. And in that, 2 people are mortally wounded, a woman student and a male one. And they're mortally wounded. They're taken to the hospital, but unfortunately they're going to die. And the police, for some reason, immediately assume that this is some kind of a crime of passion, or as they say, domestic violence. And they think that the principal suspect in killing the woman is her boyfriend, who has just driven her back to campus from some time that they've been spending together elsewhere. So this is this guy called Thornhill. And what they do then is they completely neglect any alarm measures on the campus, any lockdown or any attempt to secure the campus, which they can do to a significant degree. They don't do any of that. They simply focus on arresting this guy, Thornhill. And it turns out that he's not guilty of shooting anybody, as far as we know. But then there's a second person who seems to be arrested, and this is what the media say at the time. This is now somebody who is a Chinese national, not a South Korean, not Republic of Korea, in the same way that Cho, the currently accused one, is. But it's a Chinese citizen who arrived on a student visa from Shanghai, China, in the summer of 2006. And it's interesting that he's significantly taller than Cho. I believe Cho is about 5'8", and this Chinese person, suspect, is 6 feet tall. And I have here a Fox News Channel frame, suspect arrested. And of course that can't be Cho, because the story is that Cho was never arrested. There even is on the internet a photograph, which I believe to be accurate, although we can't, you always have to watch out in the era of photoshopping, of a tall Chinese man being held down, lying the stomach down, face down on the ground, with a policeman leaning on top of him and putting handcuffs on him. And it looks like the building in the background is one of these Virginia Tech buildings, and it looks like the uniform of the local Virginia police or state police. So there's this Chinese guy, and it was announced on Fox News. And it's if you're interested in seeing a printed version, there's a written account of this by a guy called Snead, S-N-E-A-D, in the Chicago Sun-Times. Unfortunately, this story has been sanitized away. It has been removed in the usual pattern from the Chicago Sun-Times website, but you can see a lot of this at the good website for this one is total411.info. T-O-T-A-L, then the numbers 411, Arabic numbers, info. You can see all this stuff. And it turns out that it's at the moment that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms comes into the picture, that they say, well, this Chinese guy is not a suspect. But there's very little information about him. If he was arrested, when was he released, what's his name, and so forth. This really happened, and if you want to check that it really happened, you can go to the website of the Foreign Ministry of the People's Republic of China in Beijing, and you will see that there are questions asked by journalists at the official briefing of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, where the Chinese Foreign Ministry says, yes, we're following the story, and later on when this story is dropped, the Chinese Foreign Ministry says, we hope that these news organizations that were irresponsible in putting out this story have done something to clean up for what they did. So there's a second person. We've got Thornhill, we've got the 6-foot-tall Chinese man, and then on that Monday night, again, before there was any official identification of a suspect, Keith Olbermann on MSNBC, right in the Countdown program, says he's got a source in the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau who says that they're about to arrest somebody who is not a student at the university and who is thought to be the shooter. That's Monday night. So we basically have 3 suspects. I think one of them, Thornhill, we may be able to discount, but the 6-foot-tall Chinese guy and the suspect identified by the ATF as not a student. What happened to those 2? And why did it take 24 hours for the police to figure out who they were going to blame, right? Normally, Lee Harvey Oswald, they start telling you who it is right away, and so on down the line. But in this case, no. And that gap, that 24-hour delay is extremely suspicious. And I don't know if you noticed that, but I think this is quite significant. So before we ever get the name of Cho, we've got a whole series of questions. Now, we've also got to remember people like Oswald, James Earl Ray, Sirhan, Hinckley, son of Sam Berkowitz, and so on down the line. Think about these people as archetypes. Think about them as models of what a lone assassin might be like. And then we get now to the scapegoat that the media are directing our attention to at this point, and the police also. Now, this is this guy Cho from South Korea. Now, he comes from Centerville, Virginia, not so far from here. Korean family. Sister goes to Princeton, works for the State Department. Parents from a very modest background apparently work in a dry cleaning establishment, which is one of the favorite activities favored by recent South Korean immigrants. Now, he is apparently diagnosed as autistic as soon as he gets to the United States when he's about 7 or 8. So we're talking 1992, 93, 94, something like that. He is known in his high school as somebody who just does not speak, but he's also got the fame of being a complete addict for violent video games. Now, this is significant because this is a means of brainwashing people, right? It's the right combination of psychopharmaca and games, such as Counter-Strike. That seems to be his favorite game, but he's addicted also to some others. He's got that in the picture, and, of course, psychopharmaca. He's somebody who's obviously on psychopharmaca as a result of a prescription, as I'll get to in a minute. He's also an expert shooter. He fires between 100 and 200 shots and manages to kill 32 people other than himself and wound about another 20. And his kill ratio compared to wounded ratio is very high. And compared to the kind of weapons he's using, this is quite remarkable. Now, he gets to Virginia Tech, and he immediately attracts attention because of his mental instability. I mean, he's practically the campus psychotic, and in particular, it's interesting to follow what happened in the English department, where he was an English department major with activities in creative writing. He goes to the creative writing class of a lady called Giovanni, and she says that his stories are so disturbing, so warped and twisted and so forth, that she refuses to teach him. Now, and also the fact that he refuses to speak in class. He will not participate in any discussions. He comes with dark glasses, and they say they think he's weeping behind the glasses. This is a point where Virginia Tech could have said goodbye to the guy, because normally, if you go to a class and you refuse to participate, then you're not really capable of being a college student. And this is where they could have gotten rid of him. But they don't do that. What they do is set up private lessons for him with the head of the department. Now, this is a lady, British lady you've seen on television, a British sounding lady. And she says that she feared for her life. She had a special code. She had the name of a deceased professor in the department. And if she mentioned that to her secretary or somebody else, that they knew that that was the time to call the police, because Cho had gone ballistic. So this is the story she tells now. But the facts we know is that he can't take part in the Giovanni class. He's got to come and get private lessons from the head of the department. How many people get private lessons from the head of the department? Anybody with any academic experience can tell you how rare this is. It's somehow a very definite institutional commitment, not only not to get rid of him, even though he's an obvious psychotic, but to keep him, and to keep him there. Now, he gets into trouble.
So you're saying, Webster, he's part of an elaborate brainwashing process?
I'm saying, well, it's hard to get all the way to that, but that obviously is the suspicion. In other words, that somehow they need him there. I would say the chances are this guy's a patsy. In other words, he is autistic, psychotic, and he probably can't do what he's accused of doing. In other words, he's not going to be that efficient killer that we see. So there's a very definite possibility that the 6-foot-tall Chinese guy is capable of doing the shooting, or this person that Oberman talks about from the ATF. So that what you get is a patsy, like an Oswald, who happens to be there. A professional killer comes in, does a lot of the shooting, then departs, and somehow left dead is Cho. Apparently, when Cho committed suicide at the end, he managed to do it in such a way as to disfigure his own face to the point where identification is not automatic. I suppose they can do it with DNA, but we obviously don't know any of the criminalistic details. In other words, the forensic stuff about bullet casings, matching things fired with the guns they were fired from. There's a whole dimension of detailed police work, of which we know absolutely nothing. And I think in many cases we have to assume it's not being done, because that's the lesson of 9/11. Now he gets into the story of women. Now he's got problems. He's got a secret fantasy girlfriend named Jelly. Talks to people about her. He calls himself question mark, that's his name for himself. He's got another name for himself, Ishmael X, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But he starts with the instant messaging to girls on the campus. He tries to go and meet them, accost them, if you like. They complain. This is done once or twice. And at this point, he gets in trouble with the campus police. Now, this is, again, Cho, the presumed patsy, in my opinion. Cho is visited by the campus police. They warn him once, stop, bothering these girls, stop molesting them, whatever it is. And then he is actually taken by the campus police. They take him to a Virginia magistrate, and the Virginia magistrate writes an opinion that Cho is a danger to himself, and he orders the guy committed, not permanently, but for a psychiatric evaluation. And the evaluation is that he is not suicidal, or claims not to be suicidal, and claims that there is no there's no death threat or anything like this going on. Now, this happens at a place called Carilion St. Albans Mental Clinic, I guess it is. Now, Carilion is a chain of hospitals in that area. This is very interesting because you'd like to know what's the relation of Cho to Carilion St. Albans. Did they prescribe psychopharmaca? Were there follow-up visits? Is there stuff about this that we don't know? Because this is a possible channel for influence to be exerted on Cho in ways that we do not know at the present time. And I think there's some kind of an attempt to get these records. But again, given the hysteria in this country on these issues, we don't know. Now, when we get to the day of the killings, we have the two rounds. At 7 a.m., 2 people mortally wounded, and then 9 a.m., 30 people killed, and 20 more wounded. In between, there are 2 hours. And as we said before, in those 2 hours, the campus police, the local police, do absolutely nothing as far as we can see. Now, what they do is start chasing this guy Thornhill, and they may have arrested this Chinese. Now, it may be that the reason that ultimately their cover story, or the real story why they didn't do it, is because some of them on campus had arrested the Chinese guy, the 6-foot-tall Chinese guy, and thought that that was it. And indeed, that might have been it in terms of who was going to do the shooting. But we're now in a very, very complex area. I get the impression, actually, that the Chinese guy is arrested after the second round of shooting. So there's this. And there are permutations and combinations here, which I just won't go into because they're endless.
We have 10 minutes also.
Yes, we really don't know these things. Now, we now get first of all, there's a suicide note found in the scene of the first shooting, which is this sort of Cho ranting and raving about his how he's victimized by society. The interesting thing about this is it's signed Ishmael X. This has been reported extensively in the Chicago Tribune and other sources. What's with Ishmael X? Well, in the Old Testament, you have Abraham, the patriarch. He has 2 sons. He has Isaac, and he has Ishmael. Right? And Isaac is the one that he's told to sacrifice, but then not to at the last minute. Isaac is essentially the fountainhead, I guess, of the Hebrews and of the West in a general sense, whereas Ishmael is thought to be the father of the Semites, the Arabs, and so forth. So why Ishmael X? And here the speculations multiply. There is an episode in the Quran where Abraham goes to a temple that's full of idols, engraven images, and smashes them. And according to some traditions, he does this with an axe. When you can also think of the first line of Herman Melville's Moby Dick, right? Call me Ishmael. There's a short story by James Fenimore Cooper that involves Ishmael Bush, as a matter of fact, going around with an axe. An axe is, I guess, in the ancient world, an axe is thought to be somehow a sinister tool. People running around with axes, at least in the Middle East, this is not a positive overtone. It's also interesting, therefore, that when he is the person found dead, that they claim to be Cho, suicide, he's got Ishmael X either written on his arm with a pen or tattooed on his arm. So it's in the note found in the room, on his arm, and then it is the return address on the package mailed to NBC News. Now, as soon as you have a package mailed to NBC News, you have to remember, you have no guarantee where that came from. You're told it came from Cho. They have a witness at the Postal Service, but, doubles have been known to exist. So we really don't know where all that stuff came from. Now, I would say I am skeptical about this package, if only for the following reason. If you take the picture of Cho that seems to be the most common one given by Virginia Tech, you see essentially a shy nerd wearing glasses. When you look at the picture, the face of the Cho, the angry ninja killer in the tape, just compare the ears, compare the hair color, compare the ears, compare the eyebrows, but above all the ears, and you will see that on the NBC Cho, the ears are very close to the head, hardly visible when you look at the front of the face. Whereas in the original Cho from Virginia Tech pictures, the ears are clearly visible. So are we dealing with a possible double? Yeah, well, this is common, right? There are multiple Oswalds, there are multiple Attas, at least two Attas, two Jaras in 9/11, and so on down the line. Why not more than one Cho? So, also look at the quality of this performance that he puts on. Doesn't this, we're told that this guy is so tongue-tied that he never speaks, that he's absolutely shy and never speaks. Whereas what you see in this film that he's made is a ranting ham actor who is bombastic and rhetorical and full of all kinds of sort of soap opera effects. So, and it turns out that this is copied. It's actually copied from a movie. It's called Old Boy, a movie made in the Far East in the last couple of years, and a lot of the scenes are literally one-for-one imitations with the hammer and with the knife and with the gun and all the rest of this stuff. It strikes me as, again, it's sort of a Hollywood central casting version of what the suicide tape of such a person would be. And I would also point, if you look at the London July 7th, 2005, you will see that there's a martyrdom video made by this guy, Sadiq Khan. And it seems to me that Sadiq Khan, he was known to be a patsy working for the British intelligence.
Say, Webster, we only have 4 minutes left.
Those films, listen, those films are, I believe, made as training aids because Sadiq Khan thought he was in a drill, and he probably thought he was in a drill until he was blown up in the London subways. I think they had such a good result with these martyrdom videos on the Islamic terrorist front that they decided to try that with this guy, Cho. Now, you don't know who made it. If Cho made it, what did he think he was doing? Maybe he was told this was an exercise, that this would be therapeutic for him, that it would help him to act out some of these feelings, or something like this. We simply do not know.
So, Webster, why would this be done?
Well, you have to remember that 24 hours before the shooting started in Blacksburg, Dick Cheney was on Face the Nation saying that he thinks every day that there's going to be a nuclear bomb going off in an American city. We're now in the middle of Noble Resolve 07. That has started today, today being the 23rd of April. When we're taping this, this is a 10-kiloton nuclear detonation somewhere in the state of Virginia. Interesting that the Blacksburg also, that school had a couple of bomb threats in the week before these events took place. We have the Cheney neocon faction driving repeatedly towards the brink of war with Iran. And if you take this Blacksburg event together with the NASA shootings So we start the week on Monday morning with the Blacksburg shootings, and for the Friday rush hour we have the smaller scale but very sensitive NASA shootings, right? 2 people dead there. We get what looks like a chaos and confusion scenario, a strategy of tension, if you will, for the U.S. designed to maximize the level of hysteria. It also has the following results. Asian Americans are uniformly horrified by this. They are essentially, I would say, knocked out politically to a significant degree, because they take this extremely seriously, right? They think that they somehow participate in the shame of the fact that Cho has allegedly done these things. There's also obviously an attempt to militarize campuses, to suppress the radicalism of campuses, to maybe stop campus political development. So if you can knock out Asian Americans and students and get all the hysteria going and get another round of militarization, that's already a plus. And it seems to me those are reasons to do it. In other words, these are stepping stones, perhaps, towards something we don't see yet, but a chaos and confusion strategy designed to overload circuits, to promote hysteria, and also to demonize foreigners. There's this, too. It's working on the American collective unconscious. We're told, obviously, that anybody Arab and brown is a threat. Now, anybody who's Asian is also somehow a threat. He might be the new Cho. So it's a comprehensive xenophobic strategy designed to create hatred and mistrust of foreigners who look different in the collective unconscious of the entire country. And as I say, the overwhelming suspicion in this thing is so many aspects of this are obviously untenable that we have to suspect that the pervasive, ever-present intelligence agencies are at work, especially because this campus, Virginia Tech, is full of Pentagon contractors, government offices, and all the rest of it. So there's ample opportunity for cutouts. In other words, people who are maybe working in a completely different department of the university could be the ones that exercise influence on Cho, the patsy, and then again you've got this possibility of actual assassins coming in from the outside, even being arrested, but then let go. And again, we want to know what happened to that Chinese guy, and what happened to the guy that the ATF source told Olbermann, who was not a student, was about to be arrested on the Monday night.
Thank you, Webster Tarpley. This has been Farther Down the Rabbit Hole with Paula Gloria. And Webster, let's have a part 2 where we explain in very great detail the cover of your book, because you're an expert in synthetic terror.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Thanks.